Man, what's up, YouTube? It's your boy Tyrone Hunter back in the building with another edition of What's Really Good Entertainment. If you've been rocking with the channel, well, I appreciate you. Thank you for the love and the support. If you just watching the channel for the first time, I ask you to hit the like button on the way on the door and hit that subscribe button on the way out the door. You see the title. I'm not going to hold you, man. We're going to get right into it. So this video is my experience in foster care. And for those of y'all who don't know what foster care is, you should. So I'm not even going to go into a big explanation. Nah, but I'm just playing. Because you may be from another country. You may be from a state where, you know, they don't have foster care. They don't have that program. So foster care is... the easiest way to explain it is an adopted family, meaning a family other than your own that takes you in, takes on the responsibility of raising you, and they get paid by the state to do so. So I spent about 3 years in foster care. Yeah, I spent about 3 years in foster care. I was in foster care. I was enrolled in a foster care program because I was in a DFY facility, which is a kids' youth facility by the name of Oatka Residential Center. That's Oatka, Oatka, Oatka Residential Facility. And that's located out in Rochester, New York. And so I was in this youth facility because generally, you know, if you get locked up for committing a crime and you're under the age of 16 years old, then you'll go to Spofford Detention Center, which was a well-known detention center located in the Bronx. Then from Spofford Residential Center, then you'll go to Division for Youth, DFY. Some of the well-known, you know, youth facilities they had was Tryon, which Mike Tyson was in Tryon. Goshen, Mike Tyson was in Goshen. Of course, you had Industry. You had Oatka. You had Harlem Valley. You know, you had a few of them. I don't know all of them because I've never been to all of them. So I happened to be in this particular residential facility, and they had just started a foster care program when I was there. So the foster care program they had, it was a little different. They call it like the integration, the home integration program or something like that. The person who ran it at the time was an individual by the name of Mike Havard. He was a counselor. He was one of the counselors at Oatka Residential Facility. He was one of my counselors. So he had ran the program, or he was in charge of the program. And how the program worked was they would determine, you know, who was eligible that was in the Division for Youth facility, the youth facility. And my apologies for stopping because I didn't get in the foster care program through the facility. I got into it through the group home, which is connected to the residential facility. So that's why I paused, so that I can make sure that I give y'all the right information. But in any event, and be that as it may, the program was ran by an individual by the name of Mike Havard. He was a basketball player. We played basketball with him every weekend. So pretty much you get selected while you're in that facility, and if everything checks out, then you actually would live in the home of another family, and they would get compensated, you know, pretty much for you being in their home. You would get like a monthly allowance, or you would get a monthly allowance as well as a shopping allowance. And then whatever family you were staying with, that family would get like a monthly housing allowance in order for you, you know, staying there. what I learned through that process was like all of the foster families, they knew each other. You had Mr. Graves, who was a pastor at the time. You had Bishop Jerry McCullough, who was a pastor at the time. He is a pastor of a church called Faith Temple, which is located on Genesee Street in the city of Rochester. Who else you had? You had the Williams family, Glenn and Aletha Williams. That was the family that I stayed with, Glenn and Aletha Williams. They parents have foster kids. Who else? Yeah, so it was a few of them. So with this particular foster program that they had, you got recommended by Mike Havitt, or these foster families, like, if they wanted foster kids or they needed foster kids, and Bishop McCullough's brother had foster kids as well. But in any event, I'm trying to think if it was anybody else that had foster kids at the time. I can't remember. So in any event, like, these people would reach out to Mike Havitt and, see if any foster kids was available. And, pretty much he'll let them know which ones was available. And, they would come to the facility. They would come to the youth facility and, pretty much meet the kids and, decide if they wanted those kids or not. Well, my situation was a little bit different because I was in a group home when they had started the program. The group home was attached to the youth facility. So I was in a group home, and they said that they were starting a foster care program and asked me if I wanted to be involved. And, I had to check with my mother to see if it was okay. My mother green lighted it. I was able to go in the foster care program and live with a family in Rochester, New York. So the family that I was living with lived in Greece, New York, which is a suburb outside of Rochester, outside of the city of Rochester. And then I went to a school out there, Hilton Central High School. Shout out to Hilton Central High School. That was a school where I learned a lot. A lot happened in that school. Matter of fact, it was a figure skater by the name of Nancy Kerrigan, who was a big thing like with her back in the days, where she got hit in the knee with like a sledgehammer or something by a female named Tanya Harding because they was going to be competing against each other. Well, she went to that high school. And as I told you, Mike Havitt, he played basketball. So we used to have pickup games like, every week. And when I was in the facility, I was playing on the varsity basketball team, and but I was young. I was playing on the big boy team, and I was young because I was, I was kind of nice and ball. And when I left the facility, when I went to the group home, Mike Havitt, he used to come to the group home and pick me up to take me to the facility and play basketball. And then around that time, we started going to play basketball at Nazareth College. And that's where I met Coach Jeff Van Gundy, who initially went on to play for, he initially went on to be the head coach for the New York Knicks. So I met him at the time that I was in foster care. In terms of my foster care experience, it wasn't the worst. I was with a decent family, church family. We had chores every day. We had to clean up the house over the weekend, had to go to church every Sunday. Had a little freedom. They wasn't a bad family. They was actually a good family. And, I heard of some people that was in foster care, their experiences was a little bit different. But what I do know about the family that I was with, as well as the other people who had foster kids, it was for the money. No cap, hands down, straight up and down, it was for the money. You know, they got kids because they was getting money for them. And my foster parents, they had one, two, they had three kids of their own. And in terms of foster care, it was three of us. It was three of us foster kids. At one time, it was four of us. So it was us four and they three kids, you know? So they was getting a bag. And yeah, man, I learned a lot. I learned a lot from that family. You know, I learned what a kind of family structure was, you know. Growing up in like a mother and father oriented household, I learned how to clean, you know, learned about responsibilities. Like they taught me responsibility. They showed me a lot of love. Like my foster brothers and sisters, you know, I had a lot of love for them. Just vice versa. You know, I mean, we got into our thing like, and they didn't refer to us as foster kids. They referred to us as they kids. You know, so they didn't treat us like any different than their kids. So yeah, it was definitely a decent experience. It exposed me to, like I said, the structure of having a family, um, normalcy, going to church. You know, I sung in the church choir. I made Christian raps, because I had aspirations of being a rapper like way back then in the early 90s. I made Christian raps. One time I got up there and spoke and gave a sermon, you know, because it was like all of the foster families that I knew, that knew each other, all of them were into the church. So, all of the foster kids pretty much we used to be going back. We used to go to church on Sunday, and then sometime during the week we had church if it was special occasions, or what have you. So, I was back and forth. Like they lived in Greece, New York, and then I used to go to their parents' house, who lived on the east side of Rochester. They lived on Genesee. They lived on Genesee and Elmdorf. That was the street, Genesee and Elmdorf. They lived there. So I used to be coming from like the suburbs, and I used to come to the city, and sometimes I used to stay at their house at the weekend because they had foster kids. They foster kids' name was Bezo and Sam. Both of them was from Bed-Stuy, Bezo and Sam. And yeah, I used to go chill with them, running around the city. We used to be all over the city too. The north, no matter of fact, hold on. They lived on the west side. My apologies. Genesee and Elmdorf was on the west side. The east side, the east side was like over there, Webster and stuff like that. And they had a movie theater over there, Webster. And I believe we used to go to a roller skating rink called United Skates. That was on the east side. Then the north side, the north side was dangerous back then. That was over there like North Plymouth and stuff like that, Plymouth Avenue. Um, yeah. And, downtown was the place where everybody used to go hang out. You had these two twins back then, Tim and Terrell. And it was like school rivalry kind of thing. Like in the city, it was like this school had beef with that school. So back then, East High School had beef with another high school, and they used to always meet up downtown and be getting it on. Who you had? You had this clique in on the west side called it G Boys. You had G Boys. You had Black Mob. You had the Florida Boys. They had their little rivalry. So, I mean, I wasn't involved in it, but that just let you know, like, how much I was going back and forth to the city of Rochester, and I lived out in the suburbs. So in the suburbs, you had Greece, you had Hilton, um, Brockport, um, Honeoye Falls, what other towns you had out there? Yeah, like that. And so it was a different environment. I was living in a suburban environment, went to an all white high school, and in the high school was like probably no more than 20, 30 black people out of a school of like 12, 13, 14, 1,500 people. So that's where I, that's where I learned education, learn how to speak well, learn how to speak properly. So that's where a lot of my knowledge and education come from around that time, like going to that school. And I actually graduated from the high school. And yeah, man. So I was a foster kid. I was in foster care. And I don't know too many people that was in foster care, so everybody experiences are different. And the reason why I'm talking about my experience in foster care is because, everybody that grows up in life, they have different experiences. And so this is kind of, my way of giving you, my audience, an opportunity to get to know me a little bit more, some of my experiences. So, I was definitely in the foster care system. I was in there for about 3 years, almost about 3 years in the early 90s. Pretty much ran around Rochester, ran around the city, the suburbs, and I would go back and forth from foster care, to visit New York, always getting in trouble, and then, go back out there. I had grants to go to college because when I finished high school, I graduated like towards the top of my class, and so I had grants. I got accepted into Alfred State as well as Alfred University, which is located in Buffalo, New York. And Buffalo wasn't that far from Rochester, you know. Buffalo wasn't that far. We used to go to Buffalo sometimes, depending on, what was going on. So yeah, I could have went to college, but I decided to go back to New York City, still doing the same thing, running the streets, running around the projects, and, getting caught up in the nonsense, and wound up going to prison and doing a lot of time. And that's just what it was. I don't got nothing bad to say about the foster care experience. It was pretty decent to me, And Van Gundy, no, I'm not gonna say I was good enough. I'm not gonna say I was good enough to be in the NBA, and I wasn't even disciplined. Like I wasn't trying to put in all that time and effort like other dudes was. I didn't take basketball that serious. But Jeff Van Gundy, no. And if you see this video, or if anybody went to Nazareth College around the time of 1990 to like 1993, then Mike Haber basketball team, and they was in college. This is the crazy thing, is Nazareth College were college kids, and we were like teenagers. You feel what I'm saying? Like fresh out of the group home, 14, 15, 16 years old. And Mike used to come and get us and take us to Nazareth College, and we used to smash them regular all the time. Like they couldn't beat us. We just, kids from the hood that played basketball. Some was in the youth facility, some was in foster care, and Mike Haver, he used to come pick all of us up, and he used to take us to Nazareth College and play basketball with against Jeff Van Gundy team. And I think Nazareth College, they had a decent record back then. And I was kind of surprised when Van Gundy started coaching the New York Knicks, because I didn't remember him being that good of a coach. So maybe, their record was through the roof. But yeah, we definitely used to spank them boys. And I was young, I was short, I was skinny, but my handle was crazy, and I had a little shot, Yeah, what else can I say about the foster care experience? It was cool, you know. It was an opportunity for me to be away from the city, get exposed to different experiences. Cool family. I was with a black family. They had 2 sons and a daughter, you know. Shout out to my boy, MacGyver. That was one of my foster brothers. He was from Brooklyn. Shout out to my boy Seymour. He's from the Bronx. Mad nice in basketball. Mad nice in basketball. Boy was ill. Who else? Yeah, that's the only foster brothers I remember having. MacGyver, Seymour, and then they had another foster daughter named Barbara. She was with them like for years and years and years. Yeah, my foster brothers and sisters is cool, So, and that's when I was like, I lived out in the suburbs, so I was exposed to like a lot of white people. That was the first time in my life that I was really exposed to white people. And all of the ones I came across was cool. I mean, with the exception of a few. I went to school with Danny and Johnny. They father owned the Wegmans grocery chain. I was cool with them. Who else went to that school? It was a dude named Rob New. My boy Mike Spender. That was my boy. Yeah, man, but it was a lot that was going on at that time. I'm not going to go into everything right now. I'll probably save that for the book. But it was a lot going on at that time. A lot went down in that school. It was a lot of experiences there. And I keep stopping and pausing because as I'm telling y'all that about my experience in foster care, I'm trying to remember like some of the things that happened while I was in foster care. But I mean, overall, it was a good experience for me. My parents was cool. If we got out of line, just like any other household, we got disciplined. But none of us was never abused. We was very well taken care of. Great experience. I don't have nothing to say about, my foster family aside from good things, man. They was good people. And us as foster kids, we was headaches. So even though they was probably doing it for $1, like, we was headaches. And I could imagine it was hard, like, bringing kids into your home and raising them with your kids, and you still responsible for them, whether you getting paid for them or not. But some of us from the hood, like, we had real issues, and during that time I was in foster care, my brother was locked up for a double homicide at the time. He was like 14, and he was locked up for a double homicide at the time. And I remember he had sent me a letter letting me know, like, yo, man, I'm about to be in jail for the rest of my life. It just, when you get old and you have kids, don't forget about me, make sure your kids know who I am and that kind of stuff. So that was like one of the most traumatical things that I experienced when I was in foster care. my brother sending me that letter and giving me that information. And he got around that case, and he been in jail, back and forth in jail ever since. Homeboy crazy. But yeah, man, that's it. I was in foster care. I was a foster child. I was a product of the state. I was in division for youth. I was in group homes. I was in prison. I was running the streets. Man, I had a lot going on in life. So that was one of my experiences, and that was one of the things that kind of shaped and molded me to becoming the individual that I was. Because again, that's where I graduated from high school, while I was in foster care in Rochester, New York. And if I never went to foster care, I probably would have never graduated from high school in the first place. I'm going to keep it 100, because after junior high school, I was going to junior high school in the hood, and I was in 7th grade. And I remember my second month in the 7th grade, I had cut the vice principal of the school with a razor. And I was sent away for that, So I had got kicked out of school in 7th grade. I wasn't interested in going to school back then, because school during that times, like in New York City, it was turned up. You had the Autobots, you had the Transformers, which was from my hood, Rumble, Hook Off, those dudes. So I probably would have never graduated, and I probably wouldn't have been focusing on education. So going there, being in foster care, that's where I got educated, graduated from high school at the top of my class, got accepted into college. Unfortunately, didn't go to college because I wound up getting locked up and doing 15 years in prison. So that's what kind of killed that. And probably my life would have been a whole lot different, if I decided to go to college, because my family, they was supporting me. They was talking about buying me a car and, paying for my first apartment, so I didn't have to live on a campus. They was excited because I was going to be, at that time, only the second person in my entire bloodline to ever have went to college, and I was going to be the youngest, so it was kind of a big thing. So, I had opportunity to do different things, and looking back on it, I'm like, man, why I ain't just build on that opportunity? Like, instead of going back to New York and getting in trouble and want to be a drug dealer and tough guy and all that, I could have just stayed in foster care, went to college, and ain't no telling what would have happened with my life. Can't cry with spilled milk. Everything happened for a reason. But I did have choices. I did have options. I just chose to go in the other direction. And that foster care was a gift from the curse. It was a blessing in disguise. And I just didn't take advantage of the blessing. Can't blame nobody but myself for that one there. Can't blame myself. Can't blame nobody but myself for that one there. But if y'all want to hear more about my foster care experience and some of my other experiences in life, man, I'm going to put it in a book, I'm going to put it in the book so y'all can read the entire story uncut. But this one was just more like, again, just giving you an opportunity to get to know me a little better, sharing some of my experiences with you, some of my journeys, me being in foster care, where I got my education from. Shout out to Rochester, New York. Shout out to Buffalo. Shout out to all of the surrounding counties in Rochester, New York. Shout out to everybody that been in foster care, those that were successful and those that wasn't successful. It definitely was an opportunity to do something different. But this is just part of the story, and this is also another part of the journey. So, thank you for tuning in. And, yeah, man, I'm going to catch you on the next one. Boy, Tyrone Hunter was really good.